The hearing room had barely settled when a sudden, almost electric tension swept across the chamber, a shift so palpable that even seasoned staffers paused mid-stride, sensing that what was unfolding between Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Senator John Kennedy was no ordinary Capitol Hill dispute, but a clash destined to echo far beyond the marble walls. What began as a routine committee session quickly unraveled into a confrontation charged with rising voices, frayed patience, and two political figures whose personalities, Crockett's steely, laser-focused resolve and Kennedy's folksy yet sharp-edged provocations, were on a collision course from the moment the gavel struck, with Crockett attempting repeatedly to keep the discussion grounded in facts while Kennedy's interruptions grew more pointed, his tone more dismissive, until the air thickened with the discomfort that left witnesses shifting in their seats, unsure whether to look away or watch history crack open before them. And it was only when Kennedy punctuated yet another interruption with a careless wave of the hand and a low, mocking laugh, a laugh that seemed to brush Crockett aside not as a colleague but as an inconvenience, that her expression hardened into something unmistakable, not anger, but a line being drawn. She rose from her chair in a quiet, controlled motion that many would later describe as the most powerful gesture of the day, leaned forward just enough to reclaim the space that had been encroached upon, and with a calm that sliced through the rising chaos like a blade through fog, she issued the order no one could have predicted, the order that sent shockwaves through the chamber and left even the security officers briefly frozen. Security removed Senator Kennedy from this hearing room. A sentence delivered not with fire, but with the authority of someone who has been talked over one too many times and has finally reached a point of unshakable resolve. The room fell so silent it seemed to inhale, everyone waiting for Kennedy's reaction, and though many expected him to erupt, to pound the table or challenge her authority with the force of his trademark rhetoric, what happened instead stunned the room even more than the removal order itself, because Kennedy, rather than launching into a tirade or doubling down on defiance, slowly eased back in his chair, raised his hands with an expression caught between resignation and surprise, and spoke in a tone so subdued it carried none of his usual bravado. "If that's what you feel is necessary, Congresswoman, on a broken bar, go ahead," a sentence that hung in the air like an unexpected ceasefire, shifting the energy of the entire confrontation as security approached him, speaking in low tones, not touching him but offering the senator the dignity of a choice, and Kennedy, after a long pause that seemed to stretch across the chamber like a held breath, made a decision that no one in the audience could have predicted when the hearing began. He stood up, quietly, without argument, without protest, without the fiery exit so many had braced for, and walked out of the room on his own, leaving behind a stunned committee, a gallery full of witnesses who would spend the rest of the day replaying the moment in their minds, and a congresswoman who exhaled as though releasing years of accumulated frustration, her eyes reflecting not triumph but a deep, weary relief, for in that moment, what unfolded was not merely a political skirmish but a profoundly human scene of boundaries finally enforced, of long overdue respect demanded rather than requested, of a woman in leadership refusing to allow decorum to be weaponized against her voice. And while commentators outside the chamber later attempted to paint the confrontation in the colors of partisanship, those who were present knew the truth was far more universal. The clash had transcended party lines and become a story about dignity, about the fundamental need to be heard without dismissal, about the emotional stakes that lie beneath the marble calm of congressional proceedings. And as the hearing resumed, with Crockett regaining control of the agenda and the room slowly returning to its rhythm, there was a palpable sense that something had shifted not just inside those walls but in the broader conversation about who gets to command attention, who gets to speak without being talked over, and who has the right to say enough when old dynamics refuse to bend. The incident became, in the hours that followed, a symbol of a changing political landscape, one where assertiveness no longer required aggression, where authority could be asserted with calm finality, and where even a seasoned senator could find himself humbled not by force, but by a single moment of undeniable truth, a reminder that power does not merely belong to the loudest voice in the room, but to the one willing to stand firm when respect is violated, and that sometimes, the most transformative victories arrive not with applause, But in the quiet after a storm, when a leader chooses strength over spectacle and leaves behind an example that lingers long after the cameras stop rolling,